everybody. Good Friday evening to you. I hope your Friday was very good and your weekend is off to a good start. It's the More Sports and Les Levine Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. The NBA trade deadline has come and gone, and the big name, Anthony Davis, is still with the New Orleans Pelicans. He did not get dealt. Cavs did make a couple of deals, picked up a first-round pick, all good stuff. But the question is, how did the Cavs get where they are? And it may relate to Anthony Davis staying in New Orleans. The trade to Kyrie Irving to the Boston Celtics is how we got where we are. And this is what is left as we sit here at trade deadline day a year and a half later. Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance Jr., Ante Zizic, Marquise Chris, Brandon Knight, a couple of first-round draft choices came and went. They cancel each other out. So you went from a team that was playing for the NBA Finals to a team that is playing for the lottery. And we bring in Chris Fedor, traveling with the Cavs as they are on the road, the beat reporter for the Cavs, cleveland.com. Chris, we saw the names, and the Cavs are in full rebuild mode. That trade goes down as one that has kind of set them to this point where they need to rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was the turning point of the franchise. The minute that you lose a guy like Kyrie Irving, who is supposed to represent the future post-LeBron, you have to say that it was the turning point. LeBron even called it the beginning of the end of him in Cleveland. Now, LeBron had something to do with that and Kyrie wanting out of Cleveland, but when you look back on it, obviously a lot of things have to play themselves out. But I wrote the other day that it's looking worse as you continue to go on. And look, I think it was a hard position for the Cavs to be in when you have a guy like Kyrie demanding a trade, wanting out, not wanting to play with LeBron anymore. And when you're trying to balance two realities, the compete now because we have LeBron James, but protect ourselves in case LeBron leaves because he's an impending free agent. When you're trying to balance the two things in this blockbuster deal and you don't have the specific path that you want to go down, you see the end result. You see some combination of young guys and draft picks, and then you see some guys that were brought here to try and help now, like Jay Crowder at the time, Isaiah Thomas at the time, both guys who are now gone. So I think Kobe Altman, the general manager, was put in a really, really difficult position. I think a more experienced GM might have done something a little bit different in terms of that trade. But I think the Cavs lost a lot of leverage, too, because of the way that Kyrie handled the situation and because every team around the NBA knew that he wanted out.
Fair to say, though, that the Spurs with Kawhi Leonard and the Pelicans with Anthony Davis handled it very different. They did it on their own sweet time, and so much so that, Davis will now be playing, but they had to meet to decide that. They're not going to be able to trade him until the offseason now.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Dave. I think it is fair to say that. And I think the thing that you notice is that it's an experienced front office in San Antonio that had been through something like that before. And it's Dell Demps in New Orleans, who has an experienced guy working with him, and Danny Ferry, who has been around the block. He has been in a number of different stops. And it's nothing against Kobe Altman. He was thrust into a really, really tough position. But experience can be the greatest teacher, Dave. They say that all the time. And I think if this situation comes up again in the future of Kobe Altman when he is a general manager, chances are he may handle it a little bit different. And I think the other difference between the two is that San Antonio knew which direction that they absolutely wanted to go in. Even though they were losing Kawhi Leonard, they said, we have pieces here that are going to help us compete now. So let's go get one of those. They centered it around DeMar DeRozan. In the case of the New Orleans Pelicans, they can afford to wait. They can afford to wait because they have a top 5 player who's under team control. And when they do move on from Anthony Davis, they know the direction that they have to move into. Whereas with the LeBron James Cavs, it's very, very difficult because he wanted pieces that would help them now. And the front office was looking, hey, we've got to protect our future. So they were at a fork in the road.
We got about 30, 35 seconds. Breaking news from your time with the team. Shoot-around this morning. What's going on with the Cavs tonight?
Yeah, it looks like Kevin Love's going to make his return tonight against the Wizards. He hasn't played since October, the 4th game of the regular season. Now, he said that he's got to go through shoot around first, see how his foot responds. Then he's got to go through pregame warmups, see how it responds there. But all signs point to Kevin Love returning tonight. Larry Drew sounded very optimistic about the chances of that happening. Kevin sounded optimistic about it as well. People around the organization have been pointing to this day against the Washington Wizards, first game of a back-to-back. If he does play tonight against the Wizards, he would not play tomorrow against the Indiana Pacers. If he does play against the Wizards, and all signs point to that happening, he'll be on a minutes restriction. But it looks like the centerpiece of the Cavs, the guy that they knew at the beginning of the season they couldn't afford to be without, and they've been without for a majority of the season, looks like he's ready to come back before the All-Star break.
Chris Fedor, we appreciate it, joining us from Washington, where he is getting ready to cover the Cavs and the Wizards. We're going to take a quick time out here on More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. Talking football, NFL football, and Browns potential free agent targets. Doug Lesmerises joins us straight ahead. Stay with us here on cleveland.com. Welcome back to the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. It is time to talk a little bit of football, NFL football, and the Browns. The Browns have the third most salary cap space available, according to Sportstrack.com. That is the one that tracks all of the NFL contracts. The Colts have the most with $105 million. The Jets have the second most with a projected $95 million. Then come the Browns with $79 million. What that means is the Browns can be active in free agency or potentially acquiring veterans that have big contracts that need a change of scenery. Time to bring in cleveland.com columnist Doug Lesmerises. Doug, when we talked about this yesterday, or last week rather, you had mentioned there's a window of opportunity for the Browns to win. It's now. They have the money to do it. What areas do you see best served by the Browns going out and spending some of that $79 million in cap space that they have to acquire veterans?
Well, I think it's the areas that all Browns fans could identify. There's a left tackle situation still. You could use a little help at receiver, and then a couple defensive playmakers. It's just a matter of who fits that could come in the draft and who fits that maybe you can go spend some of this money on. I don't know exactly what left tackle possibilities are. So when I look at people doing the draft projections, then I'm wondering if that's the best place for the Browns to find a left tackle possibly. Maybe it's relying on Greg Robinson, but maybe it's with that first-round pick. Receiver, again, I'm not 100% sure who the obvious free agent candidates are. I'm not sure there are a ton of them, but maybe that's where you can look for some veterans who are not free agents right now but are going to get expensive for their teams. But on defense, there are guys you can go. C.J. Mosley is a name from Baltimore. He makes a ton of tackles. He makes a ton of plays. I think he's only in his mid-20s. I think he's 26. And the Ravens probably aren't going to be able to afford him. They're in a little bit of a salary cap crunch. They like him. They want to keep him. I don't know if they can. If you could add a guy like that at linebacker, you could really elevate your defense to the next level. On the defensive line, there's a lot of guys available in this draft. It's very deep on defensive linemen. So maybe you can go there to fix that as well. But linebacker, I think, is the number one place. If you lose a guy like Jamie Collins, if you're not 100% sure about Christian Kirksey, I think guys like C.J. Mosley, Jordan Hicks from the Eagles, there's a couple guys where you could really improve that defense. They could do what Demarius Randall did for the secondary last year, and I think that's where the greatest opportunity is in free agency.
Well, let's take a look at some of the positions that we just talked about and some of the names that are likely to be out there. When you look at the wide receivers, Golden Tate, Tyrell Williams, Kevin White, pass rush, Sue, Frank Collins, who's a local kid, or I'm sorry, Frank Clark, who's a local kid from Glenville, Dante Fowler, Clowney Ford, Mosley you mentioned, and then on the back half, there's some safeties there that are intriguing. Who jumps out at you, Doug, from this list as somebody that's intriguing? You mentioned Mosley, so that's one we know you like. Who else kind of bites your fancy on these guys?
Yeah, I think D Ford is interesting. You know, Browns fans may remember him from a guy jumping offside that basically cost the Chiefs a chance of going to the Super Bowl. But he's a guy who was drafted by John Dorsey. Everybody likes to link up what John Dorsey did in Kansas City now that he's here in Cleveland. I think he's a possibility. Frank Clark is interesting. I remembered him from when he played at Michigan, obviously being a Glenville kid. You know, Emmanuel Ogbah, you're wondering can you get a better end to play off of Myles Garrett? I think the best chances at defensive tackle. Everyone talk about pairing somebody defensive tackle with Larry Ogunjobi. I do think the best chance for that's in the draft, but I think an end like Frank Clark could come through free agency. But again, I think Ford, Mosley, those guys in the linebacker group are the names you're looking at the most. Earl Thomas is a big name. He's great, but I think the Browns are pretty good at safety right now. I think they're pretty decent at corner. So I thought John Dorsey did a good job last offseason shoring up the secondary. So linebacker and maybe a pass rusher is where you'd go now.
Let's talk a little bit about the opportunity to make some trades. John Dorsey showed last year very willing to do that, came away with some pretty good talent doing it as well. Are you willing to take on an Antonio Brown, a Le'Veon Bell, even Odell Beckham Jr. if you can get him? It would be a big contract that you would have to take on. Is it worth it?
Yeah, not for Le'Veon Bell, not for that position when you have a guy like Nick Chubb. You know, Odell Beckham. I mean, people love to throw that name out there. I don't think he's going anywhere, but I do think some of these big name receivers, that could be a place where, because they're so flexible with their cap space, that could be where it's worth it. That if you could get a immediate impact guy that becomes Baker Mayfield's #1 target, and you can do it because A, you have the money to spend, and B, you have become a place where guys like that want to come and they know they can be happy and you know they'll be productive. That is exactly what this window of opportunity is about. So again, Beckham's not going anywhere, but there may be wide receiver X who's not a free agent, who's good, who's currently on a roster that the Browns could get involved with because that's where they are. They have put themselves in position to be a team where they have money, but it's not only the money. They can absolutely be a place where good players want to play.
Here's a name to throw out, and Kareem Hunt. The word is a local kid who had the domestic violence issue with the Kansas City Chiefs was released. Word is he's going to get a second chance sooner rather than later. John Dorsey is a guy who has shown, even in his short time with the Browns, he's willing to give second chances to players. Is he a guy that you explore? There you go. There's a curveball for you, Doug.
We all know John Dorsey has some history with giving guys like that second chances. Worked great with Tyreek Evans in Kansas City. Jeffrey Simmons is a guy who's a defensive lineman from Mississippi State who is a name that a lot of draft people are linking with the Browns. He might be a top 10 talent that might fall. He didn't get invited to the NFL Combine. He has a previous issue. But they think, well, maybe the Browns would be a team who would take a talent risk like that. So I get it. And they've tried here and there. And if you're a strong franchise, I understand that. But I do think there's a limit. So if you're telling me, well, Hunt, it's like, okay, maybe Hunt, but I wouldn't go many guys beyond that. I wouldn't go Hunt and Simmons. And another. I think you just need to be careful about what's best for your team and about who you are. And second chances are great, but the Browns are going to get there anyway. They don't have to take risks. They're going to get there. So you have to be smart about who you are and what you stand for, because you have talent and you don't have to live in a world where you have to take risks because it's the only way you can win.
All right, Doug, I threw that curveball for you, so now we're going to give you time to take a little breather. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, let's talk some Indians baseball and the roster as it is currently constructed and what it might look like. Pitchers and catchers report next week. It's more sports and less Levine, the weekend winners edition. Doug Lesmerises and I will be back after this timeout.
Your basement is damp, dirty, and not somewhere you want to spend time. Let Naturestone Flooring transform your basement into a true extension of your home. Naturestone's proprietary hydrostatic ports allow water to simply evaporate, so no mold or mildew. Plus, it has a higher insulation rating than carpet and is warmer than linoleum, vinyl, wood, or tile.
Schedule your free in-home estimate easily online today and get up to 50% off.
Naturestone is the affordable basement floor solution that beautifies your home. Naturestone, the only concrete solution.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
Welcome back to the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. Time to talk a little baseball. Indians pitchers and catchers and likely a lot of young position players will report to Goodyear, Arizona in just a couple of days and get the 2019 season underway. The Indians did make some news today as they signed an outfielder, not the big sexy name, but a 10-year veteran in Matt Joyce. Joyce is a guy who has hit .240 during his 10-year career. Was an all-star back in 2011, battled through some back injuries last year with the Oakland A's, only 207 at-bats, hit .208, 7 home runs, 15 runs batted in, but the year before that, 2017, in almost 500 at-bats, he did hit 25 home runs, 68 runs batted in, and hit .243, so right around his career average. Time to head back and bring in cleveland.com columnist Doug Lesmerises. Doug, what do you make of the Matt Joyce signing? Obviously, we've talked a lot about the Indians needing some outfielders. Not a sexy name, but a guy who's done it at the big league level, at least.
Yeah, you say not a sexy name, but at least he's a veteran. I say not good, but at least he's old and hurt. I don't know. I mean, if you lined up Jordan Luplow, Tyler Naquin, Brandon Guyer, Lonnie Chisenhall, and Matt Joyce and put them in a lineup, and told Indians fans to pick, like, which of these guys are on your team right now, which aren't, who used to be here, and are any of these guys going to hit more than 4 home runs this year? I think we could have a game show for Indians fans. So I don't know. That's where they are. That's right. Where they are, and I get that. I get that it's Matt Joyce and it's not Bryce Harper. But they're just going to keep throwing names at the fire and hope that one of them hits. And I don't have a lot of faith that any of them are going to hit.
Well, you know, the question Indians fans are asking is, how did we get here? How did we get to where there's kind of a hole in the middle of the lineup? And the answer is the Indians went for it and in 2016, 17, 18, and traded away assets. Clint Frazier, Justice Sheffield, Francisco Mejia, and they released Jesus Aguilar. You give me Frazier, Mejia, and Aguilar, and I can plug the hole in the middle of that lineup pretty well, I think, or at least I feel a whole lot better about it. Now, they acquired Andrew Miller. That was for Frazier and Sheffield, and that really enabled them to make that run in 2016. And then Mejia brought them back Hand and Simber, and they need Hand to be the closer. So I guess in some form or fashion we should feel good because the front office went for it, didn't get it. But at least when they saw the opportunity, you know, they went for it. They went all in to try to get to a World Series championship. They got to the World Series, Game 7 extra innings, all that. But that's why we're where we are.
Yeah, no issue with that. You'd much rather go for it than get through a window and get to the end and realize you never went for it. So you have to pay the piper in baseball, especially in a small market. You can't be good all the time. And I would much rather go for it and fall off a cliff than stay steady and never really take your shot. Now, the one thing that you showed in that graphic, that's a lot of bats they traded away for arms. And I understand they have payroll limitations now, but I wrote this last week for cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer, and I got a lot of response from fans who agreed with it. I think now they need to trade an arm for some bats. They have a surplus of starting pitching, and given that they don't have really these young hitters to rely on, I think they need to make a deal with one of these starters to bring in a young bat or two to add to the middle of that lineup. So I'm in total agreement with what they did, that it was worth it, and that's why they're here now. But now I think you need to make the second adjustment, because I think they can't afford for this pitching to be this good. Shane Bieber is ready to be more than a fifth starter in the majors. And so he can't be a fifth starter. He needs to be your fourth starter, and Clevenger needs to be your third starter. And that's because you traded Bauer, or I think preferably Corey Kluber, to firm up this lineup. Because at the moment you have two all-star candidates in Lindor and Ramirez, an okay guy in Santana, and a bunch of questions after that. I think you have to answer at least one of those questions in the lineup, and I think you have the pitching to be able to make a trade to do that.
I agree 100%. You know, it's kind of interesting. Next week, spring training begins. There's still over 100 free agents. So we came up with an all-nomad team. These guys are all unsigned, and there are a number of them that if you got to believe some of these guys are going to fall through the cracks, and somebody is going to sign a one-year deal, limited dollars, and that's what I think the Indians are looking for. And you should have some confidence that Chris Antonetti and these guys will find that guy. I don't think Matt Joyce is the guy. I need somebody I can plug into the middle of the lineup and feel pretty good that they're going to be able to drive in runs, because if you can find one guy, then all of a sudden you can move Kipnis down further in the lineup, and you feel better about Jason Kipnis hitting seventh than you do third or fifth or second.
Yeah, and I do think we need to watch this shake out a little bit. And what we're saying right now about the Indians, and we're in agreement on that, isn't criticism yet. It's an acknowledgement that I just have a hard time believing that the roster they have right now is the roster they're going to take into the season in 6 weeks. I just find that hard to believe because it's so unbalanced and it doesn't make sense. But I do think there are teams out there that are in a little bit of a holding pattern, maybe because they're in on Machado or in on Harper or in on Dallas Keuchel, the starting pitcher, a couple different guys who are still out there. And all of a sudden, when some of those guys sign, the teams that then go to plan B may be open for business a little more. You get to spring training, your rotation, you realize has a couple holes in it. A guy gets hurt. A guy turns out that he stinks. And all of a sudden, you're even more interested in Corey Kluber than you were in the offseason. So I think there is absolutely a possibility that Antonetti and these guys are not done. But I add the caveat, they can't be done. So to your second point on that list, I think a guy like Marwin Gonzalez is an interesting name on that list. He has position versatility. He would certainly slot into the middle of this lineup. Adam Jones in the outfield is a guy that was a big name linked with the Indians at the deadline last year when they got Leonis Martin. Maybe they can get another guy or two on the cheap, but I think the best result is a deal that's out there, but you may need the free agency people to shake out before you can make that trade.
Doug Lesmerises, as always, great stuff. We appreciate it. Doug Lesmerises, cleveland.com columnist, joining us from down in Columbus. We are going to take a quick time out. When we return, more Indians. Joe Noga joins us from the cleveland.com studios to talk about some young guys. The Indians prospects, they're going to need some of them to come through. More sports and Les Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. We'll be right back.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant. Whatever it takes.
It takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling to bring the heat when things get chilly. Find us at 440-449-HEAT.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. Well, we know the Indians are going to be looking at a lot of young players trying to fill some holes in their everyday lineup. We're going to bring in Joe Noga, who has looked at the Indians' minor league system, wrote a nice report about it. And, Joe, he's joining us from the cleveland.com studios downtown Cleveland. We appreciate the time. What did you find out when you took a deeper dive into the Indians' farm system?
Well, what I found out was there's a lot of younger prospects now that they've sort of loaded up on in the international signing period the last couple of years. Guys that fit those middle infield, 18 to 19-year-old profile that are, strong with the bat, need to develop defensively. A couple of them have missed a year or two of development with some minor injuries, but the future beyond the top, 3 or 4 prospects in the system, once the Indians get to 2019, 2020, 2021, those guys will start to develop and will be a year or two away.
So this is one of those stopgap years, and we kind of alluded to it the segment before. They traded a lot of those prospects that were high level that would be ready for major leagues to go for it in 16, 17, and 18. So that happens. Let's talk a little bit about a guy that has a lot of eyes opened up and smiling. Tristan McKenzie, just 21 years old. This guy can bring it.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that we're still talking about Tristan McKenzie. We've been talking about him since he was 17 years old. He really dazzled in his first full pro year, winning Indians Minor League Pitcher of the Year honors at that time. Last year, a bit of a struggle, had some forearm soreness, and so he stayed back in extended spring training, got going a little bit slowly, but with Akron Rubber Ducks last year, he had an outstanding season. He's the top prospect in the Indians system. I believe he's 38th overall in the MLB pipeline, top 100. He's a guy who, if they're going to make a trade for a Corey Kluber or and deal a Kluber or a Bauer, that McKenzie would be a guy who'd be a candidate to come up and fill a spot in the rotation.
And again, just 21 years old, averages better than a strikeout per inning pitch, dominating stuff, just a really, really good-looking prospect, 21, and he was dominating at AA, so that tells you how good he is. A guy that's intriguing, power numbers, we've seen this guy hit home runs over light towers in minor league ball. Bobby Bradley, again, just 22 years old, but he's a guy that's got to put the ball in play more consistently, make more consistent contact as he moves up.
Right, and you'll find that with every minor league power hitter, that the real question is, can they get on base enough? Not just the power numbers will always be there. Bobby Bradley has produced power numbers, 20-plus home runs at every level that he's hit at so far, all 4 levels of the Indians minor league system. There's no questioning his power and his ability to hit the ball out of the ballpark. Now, again, he plays a position where the Indians are pretty loaded at the major league level right now at first base, and he's a left-handed bat. If he were a right-handed bat, it might accelerate him a little more in the system. The need for a right-handed power hitter in the Indians major league lineup right now is great, but I think they can give him a little more time to marinate, a little more time to refine things down at AAA this year. And, if moves need to be made and if that offense is sputtering and needs a jolt at some time early in the season after May, you might see Bobby Bradley come up.
Another guy that's intriguing, Daniel Johnson. He was the main guy in the Yan Gomes trade, 23 years old. And he's a guy that is intriguing. 5th-round pick of the Nationals. Some speed, too. Right,
a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism. Not a very big guy, but just very, very strong, and the power is there. The real question is, can he make enough contact? Can he put enough balls in play? Strikes out a lot more than he walks. When he gets on base, it's a good chance he's going to take second. But this is a guy who, if he can sort of find himself with the move from Washington over to the Cleveland organization, maybe he has a chance to produce. Think about a guy he profiles more like a poor man's Matt Lawton, something like that, a name from the Indians' past. But that's the kind of power numbers that he can produce and what he can give you defensively.
Last thing I'll ask you, who do you like? Who kind of jumps off the page that we haven't talked about yet, and somebody who we should keep an eye on?
Boy, there's a kid, George Valera. He's he's got all the tools with the bat. Finding a place for him in the field is going to be real tough because he's another one of those middle infielders, young. Needs a couple more years to develop, and this is a reason why the Indians can sort of play it cool with Francisco Lindor and talk of contract extensions and free agency, because they know they've got a couple of guys who profile real strong at the plate. It's just a matter of developing those middle infielders. And another infielder, Yu Chang, is a guy who keeps getting overlooked, but this is a kid who went out to the Arizona League in the fall and just tore it up and was a star out there by all accounts. And that's a guy who might have a chance, maybe sneaking in as a utility guy or getting a call up at some point if somebody gets hurt.
As always, we appreciate it. Joe Noga from the cleveland.com studios downtown Cleveland with some knowledge about the Indians' prospects and who to keep an eye on. They might be helping out at the big league level. We're going to take a quick time out. We're going to give you your weekly dose of Maction coming up. MacTrack straight ahead on More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition.
Did you know that Kentucky is home to nearly 1,000 species of wildlife?
The Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife has a team of scientists dedicated to the monitoring and study of animals that are not hunted, fished, or trapped.
We work every day to improve Kentucky's landscape so that these species can thrive.
And now there's a way for you to jump in and help.
When you become a member of Kentucky Wild, we'll work side by side and do our part to keep Kentucky wild.
Welcome back. It's time to get our weekly dose of Maction in this week's MacTrack.
Hey guys, it's Heather Klatt, and here is your MacTrack for the week. Crazy to think that in just 2 weeks, we will be crowning our first champions of the winter sports season. We have indoor track and field set to begin on February 22nd at Kent State University. In the current U.S. Track and Field Cross Country Coaches Association, their track and field rating index, Akron men are ranked 23rd in the nation. Also ranked nationally are the Missouri Tigers, coming in the top 5 for the National Wrestling Coaches Association Coaches Poll. Mizzou is an affiliate member of the MAC4 Wrestling since the SEC doesn't sponsor that sport. Last week on the basketball court, Miami snapped Bowling Green's winning streak. However, the Falcons are still on top in the MAC East. Toledo is currently riding a 4-game winning streak to sit on top of the West. The Rockets and Bowling Green face off on Saturday for their only match this season. However, they could see each other again in the 2019 MAC tournament. As the field stands, Bowling Green, Buffalo, UT, and Kent State respectively hold the top 4 spots on the men's side and would receive a bye in the first round if the tournament started today. Over on the women's side, it's Ohio, Miami, Central Michigan, and Buffalo in the top 4 seeds. Now there are still 8 to 10 games in the season remaining, so be sure to look out for some movement as we enter the final few weeks of conference play. Ohio's Amani Burke made 11 three-pointers in the Bobcats' win over Ball State last Saturday to set a new program record and tie the MAC single-game record for three-pointers. Central Michigan's Raina Frost was named to this week's NCAA starting 5. After this past week's game, the senior has 18 double-doubles and is just the second player in the NCAA to post consecutive 20-point, 20-rebound games this season. Our tweet of the week comes from Justin Moore saying, "We've secretively replaced Super Bowl 53 with Maction. Let's see if anyone notices." I'm not sure if they noticed that about the game, but they definitely noticed Maction after Julian Edelman was named Super Bowl MVP. He is the first former MAC student athlete to accomplish that, so congratulations to Jules. Anything else MAC related, be sure to visit our website, getsomeaction.com. We'll see you next week.
That'll do it for this week's edition of More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. Stick right here as Bill Castrovince will join me for this edition of the High School Sports Insider. Have a great week, everyone.
Keep it simple.
Leaders lead. Leaders lead.
Let's go! Stop whining!
Again, go again, yes! You gotta rotate, go, Stone!
The High School Sports Insider is brought to you by Cuyahoga Community College, where futures begin. By the Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. By Spectrum News 1, always Ohio, always refreshing, always on, exclusively on Spectrum. By Dominion East Ohio, Dominion, it all starts here. And by Classic Teleproductions. It's the middle of February. That means the first of the winter sports tournaments have begun and the games become more and more important. The perfect time to join us for some of the best high school sports stories from all across Ohio. Thanks for joining this edition of the High School Sports Insider. Along with Bill Castrovince, I'm Dave Bacon.
On today's show, we've got an explorer and a Viking who want to conquer everyone in the pool. Plus, we've got a Cub who's leading the Grizzlies, a golden eagle that's flying to the hoop, and a familiar face who's taking the Big Ten by storm. We begin tonight on the hardwood. Garvin Clark is an up-and-coming point guard for the Euclid Panthers. Clark is just a junior, and he's putting everything together in his junior season, and the Panthers are thrilled. Euclid has lost only 2 games since the start of the new year, and Garvin Clark is a big part of that. Garvin Clark, our Spectrum News 1 Game Breaker. He's 6 foot tall and a blur of quickness and ball handling on the basketball court. Garvin Clark is Euclid's junior point guard, and his play the last 5 or 6 weeks has helped elevate the Panthers game to an entirely different level.
My role is to get everybody involved, set everybody up, make sure everybody happy when they play. I mean, on the floor, my strongness is to go to the basket, but my weakness is my jump shot. I got to work on my jump shot, but transition, looking for the open guy, hopefully make a shot.
He's a special talent, physically. He's that kid everyone talks about. He came in as a freshman. Everybody knew who he was, so he's on the other end of the spectrum. I'm trying to rein it in a little bit and tell him once everyone else catches up to him, it's going to be a different game, and that's what's with Garvin.
The Panthers have won 10 of their last 12 games against some of the top teams in the area, and Clark is a big reason why. Garvin is seeing his hard work on his shot pay off. He's averaging better than 20 points a game during that stretch.
People are starting to sag back, so I got to work my jump. Every day, but keep in the gym. Once you see a couple go down, then you feel as if you can shoot, so you just got to stay mentally prepared and shoot the ball.
His feel is great. He's a basketball player. He's the kind of kid you're going to pick up first. If you go to the playground, you're going to know who he is within the first 30 seconds. I think sometimes with Garvin, he has a tendency to play to the competition. He sees another kid that's ranked, you're going to get everything. I want him to bring that every night, and I think once he starts doing that, the lights are really going to come on.
Clark is extremely coachable, and he's developing that coach-on-the-floor mentality that all good point guards seem to have.
Just the understanding, the overall understanding. I think sometimes he gets away with being so talented and athletic. Last 2 games, end of the third quarter, he made sure we got the last shot, which he struggled the last year and a half, and I've been on him. So I'll make sure to praise him on that. He did an awesome job of understanding time and score, which earlier in the year he was shooting with 12 seconds left, and now we got 1 shot, and those are daggers.
Timken is a famous name in Canton. You have the Timken Company, who's been a fixture in the community for over 100 years. And you have Parker Timken, a great athlete from North Canton Hoover High School. Parker started swimming just 6 years ago, and now she's a state champion who has the drive and determination to win more. Here's Parker Timken, our Cuyahoga Community College student athlete with a future. Cuyahoga Community College, where futures begin. Whatever Parker Timken does, she does it with power and passion.
Ever since I was little, I've always had to take the hardest classes because I've had to beat everyone else. It's just how I am. It's how I'm wired. I'm a really intense person on and in and out of the water, you know.
Timken is a great swimmer and Hoover's best motivational speaker.
My goal is to get my teammates ready, because I know I'll be ready no matter what, because it's all a mental thing for me. But I get my teammates ready. I'm like, you know, no one's gonna beat you. You're the best in this. You're the best in this pool right now, and it works.
She's right. Parker swam the anchor leg on 2 relay teams last season, and both won a state title, including a new state record in the 200 free relay.
I know I have a really different personality than a lot of girls, and I'm okay with that, but I want my team to remember that feeling of being motivated and that feeling of winning states and being like, wow, I want to do this every year, you know? I want my team to remember me by that.
But Timken has some unfinished business. She finished second in 2 individual races last year, and in one of them, she lost to a teammate who graduated.
I'm incredibly competitive, and I will never settle for anything less than first. And so I've been working my butt off this year just so that I can get that first place gold medal, and I won't stop until I do.
Fortunately, Parker doesn't have to worry about college. Back in May, Timken announced she will swim for the NC State Wolfpack, achieving a lifelong goal.
I told my mom at a very young age, you know, I said, Mom, I want to be great at something. And I didn't know what it was yet, and so I was trying all these different sports, and when it came to swimming, I was like, you know, this is my passion, this is what I'm good at, this is what I want to do.
She has a long-term goal too. Parker Timken is a 4.4 student who wants to go into business. After meeting her, how can you doubt her?
I want to be in business, I want to be a manager, I want to be CEO on Wall Street one day. That's what I want to do. And like I said, I'm not going to stop until I do that.
Parker's specialty in the pool has always been freestyle, but she started swimming the butterfly this season, and she's already broken the school record.
We're just getting things rolling on this week's show. We'll head back to the pool and check in on an explorer who's earned some good things with hard work. We'll also check in with the new Grizzly who's leading the pack. The High School Sports Insider will be right back.
I decided to go to Tri-C because it was easy to commute to. I was able to start Kent State as a junior. All my credits from Tri-C transferred to Kent State. I will be able to earn my bachelor's degree in 4 years. I saved a lot of money starting at Tri-C. My name is Stephanie Bain, and I earned my first degree at Cuyahoga Community College.
The High School Sports Insider rolls along. Thanks for riding shotgun. When an athlete puts in hours of hard work and sees the results, it's always satisfying for not only the athlete, but the coach. Hudson swimmer Maddy Hannon, definitely one of those athletes. Hannon went from a pretty good swimmer in 8th grade to one of the best in the state as a junior and a senior in high school. And she did it the old-fashioned way. Plenty of hard work. Hannon excels not only in the water, but in the classroom as well. Maddy Hannon, our Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, Shining Star. Hudson's Maddy Hannon was always a pretty good swimmer growing up. Once in high school, though, something clicked. Hannon started working very hard, and her times started dropping.
Middle school, I wasn't too serious about swimming, but then freshman year came around, I started to get really serious with swimming. Obviously, the winter break training helped a lot, and I've just been really working hard, pushing myself to the limits every day, and it's really paid off, and it's great for me to see that, and I just use that as motivation to keep working harder too.
I could tell that she had some potential, but even in middle school, like you said, she was a decent swimmer, but not one of our studs. But once she came in her freshman year, she really grasped the sport. She really was eager and really hungry, and by the time she got to the sophomore season, she kind of exploded onto the scene.
Hannon is now among the best swimmers in the state. She was part of Hudson's second-place state medley relay team and finished 5th in the state in the 200 freestyle during her junior season.
It really showed us that we only lost one swimmer, so this year we're gonna come back bigger and better than ever because we have a huge, very talented freshman class, so we're really excited about that.
Hannon made herself into one of the state's best swimmers with her relentless work ethic in the pool. It's something that Maddy also carries with her into the classroom, where she has above a 4.4 grade point average. Next year, she'll attend the University of Cincinnati on a swimming scholarship.
It was the best fit between athletics and academics. They really have a great balance there, like great tutoring, great help, great facilities for all the athletes. And I really just love the coaching staff, and the team was so welcoming and supportive. It was just the perfect fit for me, so I'm super excited for this fall.
I couldn't be more proud to see her go to college, get a scholarship, and swim in a Division I program. You know, that's a really awesome accomplishment for her.
Fair to say all work?
Oh yeah, she works extremely hard. She's a great kid. She puts a lot into her craft. You know, she's a good leader, but she's always red in the face after all of her swims. You could tell that she's putting it all in the pool, and that's what we asked her to do.
But before Maddy heads to UC, there are a few things she's focusing on as she gets ready for the state meet in this, her senior season.
One of the big things I'm working on is to get a nice strong catch in my freestyle and to get my wrist down, and then I'm really working on pushing my chest down in my butterfly and just some fine tuning with my strokes overall to really help push me get those extra second or two off.
If you know a student who deserves recognition like Maddy, we want to hear about them. Log on to OhioLottery.com. Head to the About section, then find Supporting Education. Nominate the student as an academic all-star, and they could end up on the High School Sports Insider as our next shining star.
Let's dry off and hit the wrestling room. There's been some big changes at Wadsworth this season. The Grizzlies have a new young leader who must replace a coaching legend. But Clay Wanger has a lot of talent to work with. Luke Boffman is going to Indiana, and Michael North is headed to Maryland. You put it all together and you have the Wadsworth Grizzlies, our team of the week. He may be a Cub, but 26-year-old Clay Wanger knows wrestling, and he's replacing a legendary coach while leading the Wadsworth Grizzlies.
I've been around a lot of good people, you know, through my wrestling career, Coach D being one of them, going to Kent State and being around good coaches there. So I've been around a lot of good people that, you know, made me believe that I'm ready.
Wanger was on the 2010 Grizzlies team that won the state title, and he still owns a school record for takedowns in a season. Clay earned 2 letters at Kent State, but he always came back home to help and coach.
Well, that's what's so special about this program, that, you know, the youth kids know the high school kids, the middle school kids. It's a family, and that's what's so awesome about this place.
He was one of my oldest brother. He was my oldest brother's best friend in high school, so I've known him since I was 5 years old.
You're good friends with him too. So like after practice, when he's done like yelling and stuff, you can go talk to him about whatever you really want to. He'll help you with almost anything.
John Gramuglia stepped down in May after 33 years. Coach G is in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. He won 26 conference titles with 16 state champions. And Gramuglia believes Wanger is a perfect successor.
He can work as hard as me, or maybe harder. I would say I'd be there at 5. He's there at 5 to 5. You know, he'd try to beat me there. So I knew his work ethic was impeccable.
And with a new head coach, there's a new atmosphere in the room. But the goals are the same.
It's a little bit different, having like a little bit more energy instead of the traditional practices, or more higher pace, quicker.
I mean, yeah, definitely you feel some pressure. You know, why wouldn't you? It's such a prestigious program, all these banners and state champions. But, you know, I look at it as a challenge, as an opportunity to, you know, continue something great and keep building this program.
If you want to see some of today's show or have missed past episodes, they're online and free. What a deal, I know. Head to citybeat-tv.com. That's citybeat-tv.com.
Still to come, we'll travel to Plain Township and fly high with the Golden Eagles. Plus, our Insider Classic has become a freshman sensation in the Big Ten. Stay tuned.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program has been recognizing role model students and teachers since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Supporting Education. There, you can nominate students in kindergarten through 12th grade as academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible for the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education. where stars shine. Thanks for hanging with us on this edition of the High School Sports Insider. Freshmen and sophomores usually don't contribute to varsity basketball teams. This year's GlenOak Golden Eagle squad, a little different. The Golden Eagles start mostly freshmen and sophomores and have no seniors playing a significant role. We have an all-access look at the young Golden Eagles as they prepare for the state basketball tournament. It's been a little bit of an up-and-down season for GlenOak, and that was expected to be the case. The Golden Eagles start mostly freshmen and sophomores, so there's been a learning curve as the season has gone on.
We've got a lot of room to grow. You know, we're playing 2 freshmen, we're playing a sophomore, we're playing a lot of juniors. All right, we've got to have guys step up into leadership positions that typically you don't have in leadership positions. Usually it's seniors. All right, so we're growing as a group, growing together with a lot of different grades trying to come together, and I like the progress that I see.
Raymar Pryor and Josiah Harris, both freshmen, are 2 of the Golden Eagles' better players. Several sophomores are also seeing regular playing time. The young guys are making the transition to the intensity of the varsity game.
We do struggle a little bit with like turnovers and situations like that, but mainly in practice we really try to work hard. We try to do that. That's probably one of the most important things to us, working hard, rebounding. We try to work a lot on shot selection, all stuff like that.
Miller is part of a junior class that has had to assume a leadership role. GlenOak's point guard, Kendall Richardson, also the quarterback on the football team, understands his role as a coach on the floor.
It's very important, you know, having 2 freshmen as starters and only a few of us, 3 or 4 of us playing varsity last year. We have like way more experience than them, so like we try to teach them little things about the game and how to work that out between all of our teammates.
Make no mistake about it, these young Eagles are very talented. Both 9th graders, Pryor and Harris, already have multiple Division I scholarship offers. The team is also very unselfish and focused on getting better.
We have a lot of talent, and we can put it together. We put it together. I think we'll be very dangerous, and we can go pretty deep into the playoffs as long as we're winning and putting our schemes together as we should. I just want to win. Like, I don't really care how many points I have. I don't really care how many rebounds I have. I just want us to like win. Like, we're all like friends here. We all like to have fun, but I just want to win.
I just want to see the floor real well, get my teammates the ball, get us looks, and I'm just trying to be a playmaker, just get everybody the ball, and just score and get us a win.
It's time to dig into our archives for this week's Insider Classic. Naz Hillman is a true freshman on the Michigan basketball team this season, and she's the first player off the bench. And yet, Hillman is averaging 12 points a game and 7 rebounds. Plus, she's leading the Wolverines in 20-point games, and she's been named the Big Ten Freshman of the Week 4 times so far. We talked to her just a year ago when she was a star at Gilmore. Today, Naz Hillman becomes an Insider Classic. Naz Hillman battles in the paint every night. At 6'2", she can handle it. Her toughest competition comes from within her own family. Hillman has always played in the shadow of her mother, Nashima.
She has so many connections, so many people know her, and then sometimes it's tough for me because I get, oh, are you Nashima's daughter, or something like that.
Nashima Hillman was named Ohio's Miss Basketball in 1994. When she led Trinity to the state championship. She then went to Vanderbilt and was named an All-American and was drafted by the Nashville Noise of the ABL. And while growing up, Naz never knew any of it.
My mom always tells a story about how I got in the car one day and I was like, Mom, what's an All-American? Like, what's a Miss Ohio? Because she never told me about it. She just said she played basketball, she played in high school and college, and that was it.
But there are other rings in the family. Her uncle, Jawad Williams, who played at St. Ed's, North Carolina, and the Cavaliers. Her aunt, Saida Williams, at Regina, and her other aunt, Ajani Williams, at Cleveland Central Catholic.
She told me I can't sit at the big girls table until I win a state championship because my mom has one, my aunt has 4, and my other aunt has 1, my uncle has 1. So we have some state championships in our families.
But in March, Naz joined the exclusive championship group when she led Gilmore to its first state championship in school history.
I can now sit at the big girls' table and eat with them, which is an honor, of course.
I knew Naz from scouting her and playing against her at my previous spot, so I knew she was obviously a very talented player. But what I didn't know was how good a person, how good a leader she is.
And all those qualities earned her a Big Ten scholarship. Naz gave a verbal commitment to Michigan just before her senior year. So now her goal is to win another state title, become Miss Basketball, and play in the pros someday, just like her mom.
She always congratulates me on anything that I get, whether it's, you know, meeting her standard or going beyond it. And that's just so helpful to have somebody to compete with, but in a loving way.
We want you to get more involved in the show, and you can through social media. Follow us on Twitter. We're at HS Sports Insider and at Dave Bacon Sports. Tweet us your story ideas, pictures, or video showing your school spirit. We'll use it in a future show. We're still plugging away on Facebook as well. Head to our page and like us. We're at High School Sports Insider.
And by the way, the tweets of the week are coming up next.
I've got a 4-year degree. I wasn't really able to find a job despite putting out over 100 applications, so I decided to go back to school. You know, Tri-C really did change my life. After getting my degree from Tri-C, I'm working in the IT field. I work at a job I love. Life is good, thanks to Tri-C. My name is Josh Gatka, and I received my IT degree from Tri-C.
Welcome back inside the High School Sports Insider. We've come to that time of the show where we're going to ask for your help. We're always on the lookout for outstanding performances, crazy plays, or high school kids just having fun. That's where you come in. When you see something like that going on, you have to let us know about them. A few rules, and by now you know them. You have to use 280 characters or less, pictures or video, even better. It's time for the tweets of the week. Browns linebacker Joe Schobert stopped by Brunswick High School to help promote a St. Baldrick's event in March that will raise money for childhood cancer prevention. The St. Francis de Sales lacrosse team with a polar plunge, they raised more than $3,000 for local Special Olympics. Max Prep's Tour of Champions stopped by Kenston High School to honor the Bombers' state champion football team as one of the best in the country. And Menor High School football coach Steve Trevisano announced this upcoming fall will be his last as the head football coach. He's built the Cards into one of the best programs in the state. Keep those tweets coming. We want your story ideas or your pictures or video showing your school spirit. Tweet those to us. We're at HS Sports Insider or at Dave Bacon Sports. Use hashtag HSSI Ohio. Again, that's at HS Sports Insider or at Dave Bacon Sports. Use hashtag HSSI Ohio. We'll use a few of them on upcoming shows as the tweets of the week. Unfortunately, we're all out of time on this week's show. Before we go, we want to thank you for taking the time again to join us. We hope to see you back here next week, same time, same place, when again we'll have some of the best high school sports stories from all across Ohio.
Thanks for watching, and thank you for supporting high school athletics. Have a great night.